Hello everybody, Joel Tadman here and welcome to the Golf Monthly YouTube channel where I have a very special treat for you today. I am one of the first people in the UK to get my hands on the new Titleist TS1 and TS4 driver. It's a very exciting day. Of course, these two drivers join the TS2 and the TS3 models in Titleist driver range. So now there's 4 different models to choose from, but the big question is, which type of golfer are these two drivers going to benefit compared to the TS2 or the TS3? And should you consider switching to one of these two drivers? That's what we're going to try and talk about and test in this video. But before we do that, we need to remind you to hit that subscribe button to make sure you don't miss any of our equipment review videos. And of course, click the like button down here if you like what you're watching, and make sure you watch to the end because I'd love to hear what you think of this test and your thoughts about whether you're thinking of switching to one of these drivers based on the results that we're going to publish a bit later on. But Titleist kind of felt like there was basically catering for 95% of players with their TS2 and TS3 drivers. Both very good drivers, of course. TS2 a bit more forgiving, higher launching, higher spinning than the TS3, which was a lower launching, lower spinning driver, a bit more of a smaller pear-shaped head, and of course had the adjustable SureFit CG weight cartridge in there. So with all the different adjustability on that driver, it could fit a lot of different players, especially the tour players. But Titleist felt like there were two types of golfer that they weren't really catering for. The first was with TS1 was that really lightweight feeling, draw biased, forgiving driver. They felt like there were some golfers that needed even more launch and spin to keep the ball in the air. The TS4 driver is for those golfers who need to take spin off their shots. So perhaps you've got a really high swing speed and high launch and you take some spin off. Maybe your attack angle is quite down with a fast swing speed and therefore you need to take some spin off. Or maybe your swing speed is kind of moderate but you hit across the ball quite a lot and you need to take some spin off to reduce the curvature of your shots. That is another reason why the TS4 potentially could be for you. It's only a very niche product. Titleist don't expect a lot of golfers to be fitted into the TS1 or the TS4. You know, it's just so that they can basically cover off every golfer. I think that still the majority of players will be fitted into the TS2 and the TS3 because they are very good drivers. Of course, make sure you watch our review on those two drivers on the Golf Monthly website. Starting with the TS1, the big story here is that this driver is a lot lighter. In fact, it's around 55 grams lighter than the TS2. And the way they've done that is through an 8 gram lighter club head. The shaft is also a lot lighter. So this is actually a 45 gram Fubuki MV series shaft. It does go all the way down to 40 grams. So they're saving an awful lot of weight here with the new shaft offerings just in the TS1. Of course, you can get the other shafts that are available in TS2 and TS3 in this driver as well. But they've also saved weight in the grip. So this is a Golf Pride Tall Velvet 360 light. So I think it's over 20 grams lighter than the standard Tall Velvet. So that's why, that's how Titleist have made this driver feel an awful lot lighter. And the first thing you notice when you pick it up is how incredibly lightweight it does feel. And for some that might translate into a loss of awareness or feel of the club face, and it certainly did for me. We'll come on to that in a second. Conversely, the TS4, you can see here, this is a lot smaller in profile down behind the ball. It's 430cc, so certainly less forgiving. You can see with the weight fixed here in the forward position, lowers the CG, lowers the spin, lowers the flight, makes the sweet spot a little bit smaller. So it's just going to be less forgiving. One's really low launching, low spinning, and one's really high launching, high spinning, and really lightweight. So right two ends of the spectrum. Let's dive a bit deeper into the performance. Right, okay, so we'll come on to the launch monitor data that I got at Foresight HQ in a moment. But first of all, I just wanted to give you a brief kind of summary of how they look and how they feel and sound as well, because there are some stark differences between all 4 drivers which I've got here. Now, I've got, first of all, the TS2 in my hand. I'm just going to hit one away. Hopefully you can hear the sound that this driver makes. It's a bit windy today, but hopefully you'll agree it does have quite a distinct sound to it. Bit of a push, but it's quite a loud pingy sound almost, and that was similar to the TS3, I would say. But then when you contrast it to the TS4, I was fitted this morning by James Robinson. He's one of the product specialists into the TS4, and he basically recommended I went for a similar even flow 6.5x, so 65 grams this shaft in the TS4. Got this set at 8.75 degrees of loft, and I just want to kind of demonstrate the differences in sound between these two drivers, because hopefully you'll agree they're quite different. Hopefully that came across there. It's a much quieter thud sound. It's quite comparable to drivers with carbon fibre crowns. Often when you have those carbon fibre crowns on there, it does create a more muted thud sound, and this is definitely much more like that. Potentially it's the smaller size. Obviously this does have a titanium crown, one of the thinnest titanium crowns on the market, but it's not carbon fibre, so there's an interesting sound difference there. For me, I much prefer the sound and feel of this driver compared to the TS2 and potentially the TS3 as well. The other big difference, of course, with the TS4 down behind the ball, is a very compact profile, nice and small. There are, a lot of better players will enjoy, I think, that smaller look. It's got a deeper face to it. But if you like to see a lot of size down behind the ball, obviously you're going to get that in the TS2 and the TS1. The TS1 is even bigger than the TS2. It's got the largest profile of all the drivers, as you would expect, designed to provide maximum forgiveness. Whereas the TS4, which I've got here, is all about workability, aimed at those better players who really like to shake the ball and take some spin off their driver. I've smoked that one. So I think it's about time we looked at the numbers to see exactly what we got. I think a good starting point was my fitted TS3 driver, so that's in 8.5 degrees of loft with the Project X Even Flow 6.5 in extra stiff, 65 grams. Just to set some base numbers to see where I was with that current driver. We've got some average ball speed here, 154 miles an hour from an average club speed of 109.7, basically 110 miles an hour. Launching at 14.4 degrees, which is pretty high, it's where I like to be, with an average spin just under 2,1960. So, that launch and spin is pretty good with a peak height of 35 yards, normally around 36, 37 with drivers. So obviously this is slightly lower lofted, so you might expect that average carry of 273 yards. Very healthy, average smash factor of efficiency of 1.41, which is okay. Different day, maybe not swinging it as well as I have been in previous tests, but nonetheless some pretty good numbers there. So then we moved on to the TS4, and we spec'd this up with the same shaft and with 8.75 degrees of loft, so it was a 9.5 degree head in the D1 setting, so I couldn't get it exactly like for like, and we got an average ball speed of 155.1, so 1 mile an hour quicker off the face. And interestingly, the club head speed did also go up by about 1 mile an hour, so that's something you might expect with the smaller head size of the TS4. You might expect it to be a bit quicker through the air, less aerodynamic resistance, less drag, more speed, and certainly delivered that for me. So while perhaps the efficiency wasn't as good, 1.40 is slightly actually lower than the TS3, I did get more ball speed on average. As expected, the launch was a degree lower, so 13.4 degrees, and the spin was also lower as well at just over 1900, so it's around about 40 RPM lower, so not a great deal if I'm perfectly honest. The ball flight was considerably lower, 32 yards, peak height is 3 yards lower than where I was with TS3, and the average carry was exactly the same of 273, so not much in it, I think you'd agree. A bit more clubhead speed resulting in a bit more ball speed here, but the lower launch and the lower spin kind of hurt me a little bit, I would say. That extra ball speed wasn't translating into overall more carry distance, but I probably would get a few more yards of total distance given the lower ball flight and the shallower descent angle. So I think the big question with TS4 is possibly, should I play this driver? Well, yes, I could do if I had a bit more loft potentially. If I was to loft it right up to 9.5, potentially I'd get a lot more out of this driver. But I was just wanted to do a like-for-like test here to show you exactly the differences between the two. And I think we've summarised it here. So if it's not a question of switching from your same spec of your TS3 into your TS4 to get the best results. So certainly you might find yourself playing a bit more loft given the characteristics of this driver. And there was a shot that really interested me actually with this driver, which is a worry when it comes to low spin drivers. Shot 29 here, spinning at 1300, and the reason for that it was quite a heavy toe strike, 15 millimeters in the high toe section. So that's always the danger. You strike one out the toe, you reduce spin, it's going to really dive out of the air. While the accuracy was actually okay and the carry distance was okay, it's just something to be concerned about with low spin drivers. And out on the golf course, over a wider spectrum of shots, if you do hit it, you're going to be penalised a lot more with low spinning drivers like the TS4, which is why they're potentially for better players, tour pros who don't miss the sweet spot all that much. But the other interesting comparison I wanted to make was with the TS1. So this is, as I said, a much lighter offering, and first of all I tested it in the 45-gram stiff shaft, which admittedly is not something that I would play, but I just wanted to do a comparison to show you exactly the performance that it gives you. So while the ball speed was okay with this driver at 154 miles an hour, give or take, and the launch was 14 degrees, so that's not too bad from a 9.5 degree head, but the spin is just over 3,000 RPM, so it's a much higher spinning driver. You can see that. It's a much higher flying driver as well, so peak height of around about 40 yards, an average carry of 256 yards in that softer shaft. So clearly giving you a different type of performance to TS3 and TS4, perhaps a bit closer to TS2 in that TS2 is, a bit higher launching, higher spinning, but this is taking it to a whole new level in my opinion. And then finally I did test it in the same shaft and loft as I did the TS4, so my extra stiff 8.75 degrees, so ball speed was the same, 153 miles an hour, and the launch was a lot higher, 14.6 degrees, so compared to TS4 that's over a degree higher, and the spin was higher as well, around 2.6 RPM, so considerably more spin, certainly more that is desirable in my game. Higher ball flight, 39 yards peaking, and an average carry of 259, so clearly not the spec makeup for me, but that's not to be said that it won't work for you. If you're a slower swinger, you need a bit more spin to keep the ball in the air. You need a lighter field to give you more club head speed. These are all reasons why you might be switching to the TS1 compared to the TS3 and maybe even the TS2. The TS1 is basically the TS2 performance exaggerated a little bit more. So definitely something you should consider if you feel like you want to get more club head speed and ball speed. That lighter feel will translate into that for a lot of golfers looking for that type of performance. And the extra launch and spin is going to help a lot of slower swingers get more distance. And now I think we'll agree that with these TS1 and TS4 drivers joining the TS2 and the TS3, across the board, there's performance out there for everybody. So hopefully this video has given you a really good idea about the TS1 and the TS4 drivers, where they fit in Titleist's impressive driver range for 2019. If you're not sure, comment on the video and ask me a question. I'll try and answer it as best I can. And let me know what you think of this video. Are you interested in trying the TS1 and the TS4? I'd love to hear from you. And do you have a TS2 or a TS3? And maybe you think one of these two options is going to be better suited for your game. I'd love to hear from you. But as the sun comes out here at West Hill Golf Club, it's goodbye from me.